No tienes por qué ser.
Good evening. Do you hear me?
Good evening, teacher.
Okay. Give me 1 second, please. Right. Andres, good evening. Welcome to the encounter, Andres. Could you please tell me the group of students that you will have this semester for this course?
Good evening, teacher. So far, I don't have any group yet. I have to fix that next week at the language center.
Okay, that's important that you do it quickly, please, because soon you will have to video record a lesson.
Yes, teacher, I had to comply with the lesson plan. That's why I sent you that lesson plan. But maybe I'm not going to use that because I have to wait for the level of the students.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Andres. Well, we're going to start today this encounter by discussing about the communicative approach. I would like you to tell me the verbs that you associate with the word communicate or communication.
Speak.
Okay. Which other?
Create.
Create.
Listen.
Listen with communication. Okay, so the person needs to listen in order to reply something, right?
Yeah.
Any other?
Express.
Okay.
Identify.
Practice.
Well, who said identify?
Yes, me, teacher, for the
Flor? Okay, Flor. When you identify something, is it necessary to communicate something or no?
Not always, teacher, no. Sometimes.
We can identify something by watching it and just without saying anything, we say we think that we understood what it was, but it doesn't mean that we need to exchange any information or communicate something. Okay, which other verb?
Describe.
Describe, right? Which other?
Could be practice.
No, when we practice something, we can do it on our own without interacting with somebody or communicating something.
Okay. To talk.
Exactly.
Maybe arguing.
To argue or to discuss.
To define.
To define.
Retell.
Okay. Any other? Very good.
Right.
Explain, teacher.
Which other? Right? Yes. When
Right.
we write, we communicate.
To mime. To mime is okay?
Okay. Yes, it's a non-verbal way to communicate.
Explain, teacher.
Uh-huh. Any other?
To ask.
Okay, good. Very good list. Please remember to use these verbs when you write the communicative objective of your lesson. Right? If it's communicative, it's because students are going to speak or express or describe or talk or discuss or define or tell, write, mime, explain, or ask something. Right? If you write in your communicative objective that students will understand, that doesn't reflect communication. Yes? If I want my students to understand a grammar structure, I will explain the grammar structure and I can ask them to use it to fill the gaps of exercises. And with that exercise, they are not communicating anything. They are just practicing a grammar structure. Right? Then I'm going to share my screen so you can see the Bloom's taxonomy that probably some of you already know. Here we have remember, which is on the bottom, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. So which is on the bottom of the pyramid, it's called lower order thinking skills, which are basic, are easy, and they don't require communication, which are on the bottom of the pyramid are high order thinking skills, which are the more difficult ones, the ones that we need to promote in our lessons. So,
Teacher, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yes, can I make the question?
Yes, sure, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. It's the Bloom's taxonomy. That's when you try to explain yourself, is there are different stages, different levels for this kind of pyramids. I have a question. Is it possible just for applied in exercises, or is it possible applied in a curriculum when you need to make a curriculum? Because I remember just 1 year ago we have a specific class about this topic and I have listened some people try to talk to me about the try to apply this kind of situation or this custom model in a exercise, for example. Okay, if what is the I lose the presentation. Okay, so the first part is oh my god, I lose my
Okay, give me a minute.
That's a matter. I see. When in what specific moment as possible use this kind of knowledge as possible when you need to prepare a class, or you need to make a class, or when you need to make a course, or you need to make a curriculum. Because I mean, I try to apply this one out in this model. It's so kind of hard, maybe. But if you try to do it, it's like to state by state that you apply it in a depends on the methods, yes, PPP or PBL, depending on the cases. But when is a good moment when you need to use this this Buran taxonomy?
We are going to apply it to write the lesson plans and to teach the lessons. An example of how we can use it is in this sequence that I will show you and that we already read last time about TBL. So if I start a lesson by giving students an example of a conversation by showing them a video of a short conversation or by showing them a short paragraph, I am asking them to analyze it and identify what they already know in terms of vocabulary or in terms of the structures or in terms of getting the meaning of the whole situation. If I use a video, that's gonna help the students because body language helps to communicate in any situation. So besides listening to the way people speak in a situation, students will also see the place where they are and what is happening around, and that's going to help them to guess what is going on in the short example, in the short video. With beginners, we need to use visual aids to help them identify or associate words and the context. So if I apply the sequence of TBL and for the first stage, I use that example, which is called schema building, I am asking students to analyze what is happening in the situation or in the paragraph, to analyze if they try to identify or guess what is the meaning or what is what is trying to be communicated in either in the paragraph or in the video. In TBL and in communicative approaches, the teacher should promote analysis and not explain everything. So we count on the students or the learner's ability to guess and to associate and to analyze, because they have previous knowledge about how language is used in their native environments, or probably they have previous courses or some knowledge about basic words. So when we ask those type of questions like watch the video and try to tell me what is going on, even if they are beginners, they can use Spanish to explain what they understood, that what they did in the process of analysis is important because that is the way they develop that skill. The other or the way that most teachers use is to use flashcards to present vocabulary. So we don't give, if we do that, we don't give students the chance to analyze anything, that we are just giving students a list of words that they can associate with some pictures, but we are giving them the answers. So we don't help them to develop any skill. We are just telling them to memorize or write sentences and memorize them and then practice them. So, well, in the first stage of this sequence, we could apply analysis, or we could promote a little bit of analysis, but also try to promote identification. So that's why the verbs are important there. When I plan an activity, I need to think about the skill that I'm promoting. If it's just memorize, identify, recognize, understand, if it's all an action, a skill that promotes something more difficult like analyze or create or apply. That's critical thinking. Very good, Blanca. So number 2 says control practice. In the second stage or step of TBL, students practice, for example, the conversation that they watched in the video. So the teacher gives the students the transcript, help them to pronounce each word. So in the control practice, there is more, as the word says, they practice. They practice the language in a safe environment because we are not telling them to produce anything or create something, but to practice what they already heard. We reinforce the way each word is pronounced. We help them to understand each sentence of the conversation or each sentence of the paragraph that was presented in stage 1. So here we could say that the ability that is being promoted is to drill. That will be the objective in the second stage, to drill sentences related to a specific situation or to drill specific vocabulary or the pronunciation of some words. Stage 3 of the sequence is authentic listening practice. So again, here students practice by listening to examples similar to the ones presented in stage 1. So if in stage 1 I presented a conversation of students talking about their hobbies, in stage 3 I need to find out more conversations about children talking about their hobbies. And then students will do matching exercises like match the picture with the corresponding conversation or organize pictures according to the conversation. They listen, etc. The idea is that they drill orally, they listen a lot. So by listening more, the way the people speak in that situation of talking about hobbies, they can start feeling more confident about how to do it. So in stage 3, we could say that again the objective is to drill, to help the students identify new words, to help the students recognize sentences using a specific situation. In stage 4, which is focus on linguistic elements, students actually work on filling the gap exercises. So they practice the grammar of the lesson, which in the case of the example would be the use of like and doesn't like or don't like, and the vocabulary of hobbies. So the objective in that stage will be to practice, to identify, to understand, to recognize. So they are basic. In stage 5, provide freer practice. We can display the transcript of the conversation, and we can have students change some words from that conversation to make the example more close to the reality. So if in the conversation the children talk about what they do on weekends, and one says that he goes shopping with his parents and the other says that he usually goes swimming on Sunday mornings. So students need to change that conversation and write the hobbies that they really do on weekends. So in that stage, the objective or the skill that the students will practice or will develop will be to contrast or to compare, to analyze, because they need to analyze the structure of the sentences to find out where they need to put the correct words. Again, to recognize and identify. But in stage 6, when the students are asked to create their own conversations, they need to create. In that stage, they will apply one, or well, we will help them to develop one high order thinking skill, which will be to create or to apply. So that Bloom's taxonomy doesn't mean that in one single lesson we will have students develop all the skills, but according to the exercise, we will promote one or two or three skills of that taxonomy. So I'm going back again to the taxonomy. The high order skills will be create, evaluate, analyze, apply. So we can have one or two of them in the sequence of TBL. If we use PBL, we will even promote more high order thinking skills, because we will give students more responsibility to make decisions about the way to solve a problem, or the way, or how to solve a question, as we talked last week. So they need to analyze more, create and evaluate almost all during the whole process of um, researching to give answer to the question of the project. I would like you to apply that, or to try to use that, those ideas of TBL in the following exercise. We have here a lesson plan for beginners for 12-year-old students. The objectives that are written are the two ones that you see there, and one is not a communicative objective, right? Because of the verb that it uses. So we need to change, for this exercise, we need to change the sequence in the way that we can promote communication and also apply the sequence of task-based learning. So who wants to read, please, the whole lesson?
I want to read.
Okay, Shannon.
I mean, I have to read the whole document, right?
Yes, please.
So, students, 12-year-old students, beginners, communicative objectives. The students will describe their family members' personalities. The students will understand the meaning of some words used to express someone's personality. Could you just roll down? Thank you. Warm up. The teacher will greet the students and will ask them about their weekend activities. The teacher and the students will use Spanish for this short conversation. Exercise 1. The teacher will use flashcards to present vocabulary about family members. The teacher will ask students to pronounce each word. Thank you. Exercise 2. The students will label some pictures using the vocabulary of family members. Exercise 3. The students will sing a chant about family members. Exercise 4. The students will read a short text about the description of a family. The students will answer some comprehension questions. Then, exercise 5. The students will draw their family members and will write a word under each picture related to the personality of each family member.
Thank you, Sharon. That's the end of the lesson plan. So we are going to change it. We need to find out if the exercises are good for the students. They are beginners. They are 12-year-old students. We need to choose only one objective, and we need to sequence the activities so they fit the TBL sequence. Right? So what are the changes that we will do to this lesson plan?
Teacher, I would like to talk about the warm-up. I think in the warm-up, the teacher has to show them first how was the activity of the teacher, and in that way he can give them an example of how to do it.
Okay, so the warm-up, the teacher can talk about her or his weekend activities, right?
Yes, I think that before the students do it.
Remember that the warm-up is just a 5-minute exercise or less. And the objective of the warm-up is to engage students on the topic of the lesson. Okay, what else would you change to this lesson plan?
I think that the objective number 2, understand the meaning of some words, is not related with a communicative objective.
Okay, so we can have different objectives. We can have communicative objectives, and we can have grammar objectives and vocabulary objectives. In terms of grammar, we want the students to understand the meaning of some words. In terms of vocabulary, sorry. We want them to understand the meaning of some words related to people's personalities.
Yeah.
In terms of communication, we want them to describe their family members' personalities. If the topic is people's personalities, the warm-up should be related to the same topic, right?
Yeah, and the topic that the warm-up that is proposed is weekend activities. I think that maybe is about the family members.
Okay, so the teacher will read students and will talk about her
family members.
Family members.
With personality also.
Okay, we can say family members' personalities, or just his or her family members.
My question at that point is if the students will have the necessary linguistic resource to do that at the warm-up level, teacher. Is that possible as a proposal for a warm-up when the lesson objective is to actually get them to do that?
You mean if they need? Well, I didn't quite understand your question. I don't know if you're asking about the language that the teacher needs to use or the resources that the teacher needs to use during the warm-up.
Yes, because if I read the warm-up, it says the teacher will greet the students and will talk about her family member's personality. It sounds like the students will get engaged in some kind of activity when they will somehow need to be able to do what the end of the lesson is expecting them to do. I don't know if I'm the one mistaken with the language.
No, that's okay if we start by giving them the example. Actually, is the proposal of TBL. Uh, Based on the example, the teacher starts explaining or scaffolding or is helping students little by little to achieve that objective or to try to do something similar at the end of the lesson. So it could be that the teacher starts talking just about his or her family members or about exactly his family members' personalities.
Teacher,
Okay.
also, I think it's important in exercise 1. I don't know. Maybe writing the vocabulary of the flashcards in the board or giving a sheet with those words because they are beginners. And also, if when you are showing flashcard, you have to make another activity like kind of role play
Roll
activity.
the words.
Yes, or maybe by paste it in the board because they need to remember the words that they are going to use. But if you show them in a flashcard and then you keep it, they are going to ask anytime, teacher, how can I say this word, or how do you say this other one? So they have to be allowed to access to the words.
Exactly, Sharon. So if you can't display the example and for students to see it during the whole lesson, that's helpful for them.
Yeah.
Look at that here using the visual aids is because we have beginners, right? They
Yeah.
need to associate what they are listening to something that they can see and so they can guess what the teacher is trying to communicate. They are beginners, so they don't have a lot of knowledge of the language or grammar or vocabulary. And we are just trying to help them to make associations of what they see and what they listen. So displaying the example on the wall or on the board is necessary, and it's also important that we do not expect students to understand everything that we say during the exam, because actually our task is to, after giving them the example, help them little by little to understand everything that was written there or that was said, so that at the end they can do something similar. Doing something similar doesn't mean that they are not going to make mistakes. Again, if they are beginners, that's what you will find, a lot of mistakes. But it is different to use a flashcard to talk about complete sentences about, in this case, my family members' personalities. It is different than presenting flashcards with vocabulary. Because if I give the context, which is giving them the complete sentences and saying them, well,
So if you agree, I would like to do at the second point, the point C and D. Giancarlo, the point number 1, and Arlene, for the second point, the A and the B. You agree with that?
but I didn't get the idea. Could you repeat, Shannon? Sharon?
Just tell me, teacher.
I didn't get the idea what you were saying.
No. I mean, I'm agree with you about the idea that if you are showing this kind of topics to beginners, they are going to make several mistakes because they are beginners, they don't know grammatical structure, or even they can twist words, order, and all that kind of things. So for that reason, I think it's exercise 2 or 3 that they have to make some drawings so they can associate the words with the family members and also relate the personalities. And but I don't see in the warm up or in a teacher explanation about personalities, because we can show them a flashcard with a woman and we can say this is a mother.
No,
Or
that is what we shouldn't do, because that is presenting the language in isolation. And we will need to tell them the way language works in a complete context, in the whole context. So what we plan for the communicative less objective needs to be close to what we really do in real life. Sometimes we talk with our friends about our families.
yes,
Yes, but we don't we don't want the students to see language as separate and just this is the vocabulary of family, this is the vocabulary of personality, but we want them to be able to understand, yes, to connect everything and to see that there are complete sentences. With beginners, those sentences will be short. So, example, in the warm-up, I can choose a recognized family like The Simpsons, let's say, because this is for 12-year-old students. And I will display the Simpsons family on the board and I will tell them, hey, what's the name of this person? This is Homer, right? So this is Homer's family. So we have here Marge. She's a very organized woman, let's say. And here we have Bart. Bart is a very creative boy. And here we have Maggie. Maggie, she's a very cute girl. And she's also curious. Yeah, so I'm giving them the complete sentences and not just the words in isolation.
kind of global method.
Exactly. So we in communicative approaches, we consider that students are able to understand the complete idea if we give them the help of visual aids, and if we give them sentences that are not too difficult for their level.
And also we can use kind of matching exercise.
Do that during the sequence because we want them to they get like the main idea during the warm-up or the example, but after they get the main idea of the topic of the lesson, we need to help them understand all the sentences and all the words by helping them work on matching exercises, on pronunciation exercises. But we don't present the example with words in isolation, but with the whole way to use the language in a situation.
Okay.
I still have a question about the warm-up activity. Is since we're like analyzing this lesson plan, would that be fine just to leave it like that? Because there is not an actual description of what the activity is in a warm-up. This says that the teacher will greet, but is there? I don't see myself a procedure there. Like, okay, the teacher will ask the students these type of questions, like with these language, and then they will do that, or they will expect this type of answers. It's a simple interaction. I mean, is that fine just to state it that way, or would it need a little bit more detail about what is really going to happen with that greeting the students about the family members' personalities?
It will be great if there is a description of the whole exercise. But anyway, if I read that the teacher will talk about his or her family members' personalities, I will understand that there is a context to present the example of what the students need to be able to do at the end of the lesson. If I read, the teacher will read the students and will use flashcards to present the vocabulary of family members and people's personalities, then I will understand that language is presented in isolation and not in a context.
All right,
Teacher,
thank you.
Okay.
teacher, I don't know, it's possible I have it confused, yeah? Okay, when you try to make a warm up as possible, you try to do it different things, yeah? Possible games, so it's activity the students disposes for try to do the exercises, yes? Or probably you check their previous knowledge, yeah? For example, when
Yeah.
you say the teacher will grade the students and will talk about his her family members' personalities, that is possible that to try to make an introduction. Yeah, that is possible due to presentation of the class. I don't know if it's a good idea to begin into a class for this situation. Different decide the teacher can use a flashcards or drawing a visual aid. For me, this activity that you plan, you try to organize in a warm up as possible. Do it in a first part of the class. Yeah. In my personal case, in this case, I try, for example, I work to work with I don't know, mimics is a correct expression in English. And for example, I choose one of your or students, and I showed it the show paper, and I say, okay, you need to do mimics about your mother, and he beginning to act like the mother, and the other class need to say, okay, this mother, his sister, his grandpa, depend the cases, and this is the first part. It's in my opinion. I don't know if the rest is okay, but try to engage the students for the class. And after, in a second part of the class or the next exercises, it's to try to use the flashcards. Yeah, that's possible. Use the scenes on flashcards. The family scenes is good, and you try to express the different personalities and beginning to express the activity in a short presentation. Maybe that's is possible. As for me, let's try to work out better. Yeah, I don't know.
That's okay. So the warm up that we wrote here is okay, but we can also use a game, or as you said, any exercise to have students or to find out if the information that the students have about the topic. So let's suppose that we use the flashcard again of The Simpsons, and we ask the students, "Hey, what do you see? What do you see in this picture?" So they will probably mention the names of the members of the family, and we can ask, "What else can you say about this?"
What's up?
What other words do you know, or what else can you say about this family? So that can be a warm up. So any exercise to find out the student's previous knowledge about the topic of the lesson is okay. So
for example, the
a 5-minute game. What else?
Yeah, avalanche. There's mimics. There's a Pictionary. That's well, I mean, there's a lot of possible games. It's possible to work with. It's possible works a format, a fairly format with their students, for try have engage. Because when you're beginning at the first part, you say, okay, the personality of for example, my mom, it's an a kind people. I'm gonna the teacher, the student say, oh, what? At the first, it's important to try to describe the context. Yeah, that's really important. If you don't have the context for that, it's very difficult.
Okay,
but try to make to the meaningful knowledge for them. Yeah,
exactly.
try to do the taxonomy of okay, this.
In the example that you gave us, you ask students a question: what is the person doing, or what do you see here? But we are not presenting the language in those examples. It's okay. It's okay. We can, in the warm-up, we can just find out the student's previous knowledge, or we can present the language of the lesson in context. those two are possible. Like we can use the warm-up as the first stage of the TVL, or we can use the warm-up to find out the student's previous knowledge of the topic by asking a question, not presenting the vocabulary. That is okay.
Teacher, in that case, can I use a song about family?
Yes, you can show the students a video of a chant of the family if you are thinking about 5, 6, 7-year-old students, right? They will, that for sure will catch their attention, and that's good for little kids.
Teacher,
Okay.
will something like just that, like a road, be okay for a warm up in this situation? I just want to validate this.
Could you repeat, please?
I wrote on the chat what I would understand that a warm up would be for this type of lesson. Could that something like what I just wrote be okay for this type of activity?
Okay, it says teacher will present students with some flashcards about the Simpsons family. Teacher divides the class and explains that he will call a Simpsons name for one of them to come up from and say as much as they can about the character personality. The team that comes up with the most valid words wins. Yeah, that's a good one. You are just trying to find out the language that the students already know about the topic. Sometimes they have some knowledge of some words when they are beginners. That's good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's continue to change this lesson plan. So if we want to use the TBL sequence, what can we do for the first exercises, for the first stages? So remember that TBL's sequence, let me show it to you again. So we have number 1, which is present the example or the language in context. Number 2 is to control practice. So we help students identify the pronunciation of what we presented and the meaning of the words, and that is what we have to do. Number 3, remember that are listening or reading exercises. Number 4 is grammar exercises. Number 5 is to have them change something from the example, and number 6 is to help to ask them to create something. Giancarlo wrote, look for a short video about 2 people describing each other's or someone else's personality in language at the target level. Okay, let's go back to the lesson plan.
Tisha, maybe for this activity, I could use an online game where the child can listen and the names of the family and match with the correct picture. Maybe it could be an a good activity. I don't know.
Okay, that could be for the authentic listening stage, which is number 3.
Okay.
So if we use a warm-up for presenting the language, in number 1, Giancarlo proposed look for a short video about 2 people describing each other's, someone else's personality, language at the target level. That can also be, okay, if we use in the warm-up the questions to find out the student's previous knowledge. So exercise 1 will be presenting the language in context. And that exercise could help. So to look for a short video, students will watch it, and the video will be about people describing somebody else's personality. Exercise 2, which is control practice. Students need to practice the way to pronounce and to identify the meaning of the words. So what exercises do you propose? If we have number 1, the video, number 2, what would be number 2? Students watch the video, but they got some ideas about the topic of the lesson. They recognize some words, or the images of the video help them to understand some ideas. So now what can we do to help the students understand more information from the video?
Well, at that point, we can have students role play the conversation, or we could play the same video. At the first time, if we have them observe the video just to understand the language and context, I think it would be a good idea just to get them to, well, we can give them like the transcript of what's in there for them to see how the language is used, and to go ahead and role play the same conversation so they can get to use it before they do the authentic listening part.
Okay. Imagine that you don't have that you are in a, let's say, Italian lesson. You don't have any idea about Italian. No, that's very easy because it's similar to Spanish. A Russian lesson, and you don't have any idea about Russian. So you watch a video about the Russian conversation in Russian, and you are asked to role play the situation by reading the transcript as the second exercise just after watching the video.
It's difficult.
You don't know exactly what all the sentences in the transcript are about. You have some ideas because you watched the video and you saw some nonverbal, their movements and the place where the people were talking, and you say, well, these people probably are talking about a word that you got from there, like they like it, that they are talking probably about something they like because they are smiling, but exactly what they say, I don't know. So in exercise 2, I need to help the students understand the words and also to practice the way to pronounce the sentences. So I can give them the transcript, but I can help them to repeat each sentence, and I can use flashcards, for example, to tell them that the first sentence is that they are talking about soccer.
Could we use something like, for example, like give them the same transcript and getting them to, well, since this is a video and we're assuming that they can get to see the video, like to put in order some of the words that is considered the target language that is in there. For example, we can use like we can give them the transcript, and then, or we can give them the transcript and then like with some gaps with the target language that is in the transcript for them, like when to listen, match them the words with some images, for example, so they can fill in the gap with using the same transcript they used in the video before, and
Yes.
that gap could be connected with some flashcard or images for them to notice the target language that was in the video.
Exactly. That is called scaffolding. So you help students to understand little by little what the example is about. Use flashcards of keywords to help students understand the meaning of the key of the target language. So now I have Bart. Let's say, if we want to go back to the idea of the Simpsons, I have Bart and playing a game. I have Lisa reading. So I can tell the students that in the image of Lisa reading, so we will have disciplined, let's say. So in the conversation we have, well, this is Lisa, and she's a very disciplined girl, and we have the gap of discipline, and we have the flashcard of Lisa reading or studying something, so we can help them associate that idea of the image with the word discipline. So we can help them to repeat the word associated with the picture, and then use it to fill the gap after listening to the sentence. And then we can have them repeat each sentence.
In that exercise, they can listen again the video or watching the video for how many times?
Yes, like many times.
Many times?
Yes. So the idea is not to use, let's say, 10 different sources, 10 different material, but to have students understand one single model, and to have them try to reply it or do something similar at the end. In the case of TBL, I'm not saying that all of you need to use this structure for your classes, but it's just an example.
Yeah.
Okay, so then when we help the students to scaffold every sentence with keywords and to practice orally every sentence, to repeat after they listen to every sentence, we have, that is the control practice, right? Then we have the authentic listening, which is more listening exercises or reading exercises. So what can we do here? It is called authentic because we need to show a student something that is close to reality.
I think in this stage we can use my suggestion that I wrote in the chat, which is to have an audio with dialogue about the topic and then to ask students to rehearse it.
Okay, good. Which other activity could be used in this stage?
In that state, they can create a conversation, or no?
No, here they don't create. they get more examples similar to the first one, and they do exercises with that example.
Teacher, or maybe make a role play?
No, they don't create anything there. They practice listening and reading in that stage. And that listening and that reading needs to be similar to the example or needs to be related with the topic of the lesson. To the first example. So what we can change is the exercise. We have more listening or more reading. In this case, the students rehearse orally, or which other activity can they do with the listening?